right, welcome to our March edition of Sports Highlights. Glad you're with us. Greg Bicaveras. For more, log on to nnpstv.com. It is finally spring here in Hampton Roads, thank goodness. As we talk today to Nicole Kuykendall Sullivan and Jacqueline Cassie Kirkendall, the JV field hockey coach at Menchville and also the head field hockey coach at Menchville, and they're both sisters. Good to see you both. We'll start off with the older one first, of course. Nicole, tell us about your background and how you got involved in this wonderful sport of field hockey.
I played field hockey since I was in 8th grade. I played for Menchville, so going back to my home school was one of the best parts about coaching. I also played at Christopher Newport University, so I learned a lot through my college coach and was able to take that back to Menchville as well.
And of course, you follow that as well. You teach at 4 elementary schools. How did you get involved in, follow the older sister a little bit?
Yeah, so her playing and starting in 8th grade, I started when I was around 7 or 8, just picking up a field hockey stick, running around, playing with her in the backyard. It's kind of hard not to just get thrown into a sport. So that was how it happened, and I enjoyed it so much. I played all the way through, played at Menchville. I went away to my favorite college, which doesn't have field hockey. It's a SEC school, so they don't even know what that is.
Right.
But coming back here, it's nice being able to get back involved in it, especially at the school that I graduated from, which is really nice.
So a lot of your kids call you Coach K, but tell the public out there, because your last name is pronounced Kirkendall.
Yes.
Right. How many times? And my last name is long, so I'm sure it's been butchered a lot over the years.
Oh, all the time. Most of the time in school, they would get to Nicole, and I would already raise my hand because I knew it was me.
Right.
And I actually am married, and my name is Sullivan.
Right.
But my kids never wanted to change my name because they said, no, you're Coach K, you're Coach K. We can't call you anything else. So Coach K just stuck, and at school, that's what all my kids call me that I teach as well.
Let me ask you, we'll go back and forth here about the equipment to play field hockey. The first thing I think about is how hard the actual, the ball is. That is like a lethal weapon. Talk about, it's not like a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball.
Right.
Golf balls are hard too, but talk about that.
I think a big thing for me was when I played, we had no face gear at all.
Wow.
And coming back, they do. So I had to almost relearn kind of not only new equipment, but a new sport too, because they can now fling it in the air. When I played, you couldn't. So coming back here, it's learning the new equipment, like your face, and on corners, they used to have to wear even more material on their face and guarding them, and they don't do that anymore. So it's this back and forth play of what can the girls wear to protect them and what can they not, because this ball comes so fast and it's so hard. And people don't realize what it's like until they hold it.
I guess the first thing, Nicole, I think about is your teeth and also your nose and your eyes.
Right. I remember in high school, we had a girl that in practice the day before homecoming got the ball up into her face and chipped her tooth. And of course, she's like, oh, I have homecoming the next day.
Right.
But more injuries that I've seen are hands and on the face. So you would think that maybe girls would stop playing, but they haven't. I actually in college got my forehead split wide open. So, I mean, you see it more often than not, which is a sad thing, but they have started wearing the protective gear more to try to help with some of the injuries, but it doesn't necessarily stop them.
Right. Of course, we're talking to the two young ladies here, the sisters here, Nicole K. Sullivan, and of course, Jacqueline Cassie Kirkendall as well. Love to call Cassie her name. I love that name, Cassie, by the way. But let's talk about how you complement each other, because a varsity player in the 9th grade can play varsity, or they can also play JV. So is it a judgment call that you two girls get together and have meetings? You got to make cuts that this girl in the 9th grade is good enough to play varsity as opposed to JV.
Right. I think a big thing for me this year was letting her be able to tell me in enough time, like, hey, this is who I'm pulling up, or I'm still on the fence about this. So it was really nice kind of being able, I think, over the summer, especially during tryouts, I was at her house every night, if not in between the 2-a-days. We would get together, have lunch, kind of try to make these decisions together, who plays well with who kind of brings up the group and who doesn't, kind of thing, who meshes well, who can stay on JV and be a leader. That kind of brings my team up. We kind of had those conversations, which you need to have. Like, somebody can be a really good 9th grader and a strong 9th grader, but are they better to keep as a leader on JV, or do they need to be brought up potentially to the varsity level?
Right,
So
because Nicole, they can still play JV in the 10th grade if they have to.
yeah.
Absolutely. And this year wasn't as much. We had a lot of ninth graders. So it was splitting the ninth graders. And that was a very hard decision, one that I haven't really had to make in a while. My team was old for the past couple years. So this year's team was younger than we've had in a long time. And that was a very difficult decision for us with I think we had maybe 12
13.
ninth graders.
Yeah.
So we had to try to split and figure out who was best for each team. And bringing ninth graders, sometimes they could be starters. Sometimes they might sit the bench more. And it's like, well, if they're not going to play as much, is it better to leave them down to be a leader or to get more playing time versus bringing them up if they're just not quite ready yet?
Do y'all film a lot of the practices?
No.
So this is truly the two girls getting together and making a decision for the better of the team, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We
so-
have other eyes watching too,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
helpful too.
But right, you're still the head coach and the JV
Oh, yeah.
coach, regardless. Y'all have to make that final decision.
Yeah.
Is playing time an issue, or it's not as much an issue?
We try to keep small teams so that it's not an issue. It's always going to be an issue
Right,
with
yeah.
parents these days.
Yeah.
They just don't quite understand if they're not in the role, or they think they know, they've coached something else. But until they're actually in the role and can see what's going on every single minute of every practice, they really don't know what goes through our decisions for making who's playing which game. But for the most part, we try to get in every girl to every game that we possibly can. If we didn't think that they were going to be an asset to the team, we wouldn't keep them.
Right. We're talking to Nicole Kirkendall-Sullivan, also Jacqueline Cassie Kirkendall. They are the head varsity field hockey coach at Menchville and JV coach. All right, let's talk about time here for a second. You're at 4 schools, you say. Let's talk about that. How did you get into 4 schools? And talk about the SEC school that you went to. And then the question for your sister would be is how do you budget your time as a teacher, as a mom, and also as a coach? That's difficult. Start off with you first.
So when I was 8, I got an Ole Miss soccer ball, and I told my parents I was going to Ole Miss, and no one believed me. In my junior year, I officially told them I was going, and it was hard because I love field hockey, but my first love was soccer, and it was hard, kind of coaches included, kind of putting that away and saying, I'm not going to go play somewhere. Because I could have played D3, I could have stayed somewhere in Virginia and played, and I was like, no, I'm going to Ole Miss, why would I not? So coming back here and accepting a job at Newport News Public Schools as an art teacher, I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. One school, no, I'm at 4. I go from one side of the peninsula to the other, and one thing that I struggled with was some of them are on the late schedule. So I don't dismiss till 4, if not 4:15. So being a coach, some of my girls they dismiss at 2:05. So it's keeping them around, trying to get them to do a study hall or something until I can get to the school to coach.
Right. Now, look, my mom cried when I went to George Mason. That's 3 hours away. Did your mom cry a lot when you went to Mississippi, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's what brought me back here. I think
Okay.
I needed to get away. I needed to get away from Virginia and away from this area. Growing up and living in the same house since
Yeah.
you were 5, you need to get away.
You need to evolve a little bit. Now, how about you? I mean, it's, you're a college graduate, you're full-time teaching. Talk about what you teach. You're a mom, you're a wife, and you travel a lot too. Let's talk about how do you balance all this? Yeah.
I really just take it one day at a time. I know making lists is something that I do
Yeah.
on a daily basis just to make sure that I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. But I do teach high school Algebra 1. It's a double block collaborative class. So it is very low level math, but it's a lot of the students that need the most help in the school. So that's kind of where my passion is, aside from field hockey. So during the day, I try to really focus on my kids that I have in the classroom and helping those students the best that I can. And then once that bell rings at 2:05, that's when I become coach. And then by the time that practice or my game is over, then I become mom. So sometimes those times overlap and I'm not able to stay for a JV game because I'm rushing to my son's baseball or soccer game. So it really is like a day-to-day, what do I have to get done today?
But it's a lot easier after the season's over, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Nowadays, you really do have to coach all year round. If
Yeah.
you don't, your team is behind.
Right.
So field hockey never stops. Being a mom never stops. Being a teacher never stops.
Right.
But there are times of the year where certain things take precedent over others.
At least you don't have to travel as much after the
Yes,
season, which
yes.
is good. The do's and don'ts of field hockey. You mentioned soccer too. It seems like a lot of these sports are kind of relevant together: soccer, field hockey, and lacrosse. All kind of, all meshed together a little bit. Talk about the differences between the one that you enjoy playing soccer compared to, let's say, field hockey.
The differences definitely would be that in field hockey, the ball can't touch your foot, and
Right.
in soccer, you want to keep it on your foot. Another big thing is, I would say, just the fact that you can play them both in the air, but I would say more or less field hockey, you can play tighter, I think. Or the ball can be 2 feet in front of you, where in soccer, like your stick, your leg can't be 2 feet in front of you without somebody coming across your whole body.
Right.
So I think that's a bit of a difference. Other than that, it's 11 v 11.
Right.
The field's exactly the same. A lot of times it's the same girls. You're running the same exact positions. Positions are almost identical depending on the coach.
Right.
The formations can be flipped and flopped the whole way. So a lot of the girls that I played with, we played both sports.
Yeah.
Most of our soccer players are some of our better players with their field vision, their
Yeah.
game sense, their
Right.
awareness, things that you can't teach as easily.
Right.
Breaking
short
down your
amount of time.
steps.
Do you
on
encourage the
defense.
girls to play 2 sports? That's a lot, as you know, trying to get a nice GPA as well. You
Right.
coach 2 sports, and now you just do 1. Do you still think it's a good idea?
Absolutely. I encourage my girls to be as well-rounded as possible. Being a student athlete is really important to me, so grades are number one. I'm constantly checking all of my players' grades, making sure that they're on the right track. But I think that they can learn something different from each and every sport, as well as different coaches. So I know a lot of them really like to focus on one sport nowadays, and they do club and they play all year round, and they want to go to college, which I think is a great path for them, but I think they can learn a lot from different sports.
How much do you have to work on attitude at the beginning of the year that these girls all get along? They don't have to be best friends, but they almost have to be best friends when they're playing, though.
Yeah.
For communication, how important is that communication? When you don't have the field hockey ball, you have to move without the ball, all that stuff, and just respect each other, right?
Yeah, my coach, Coach Haas, used to say, when you're between my lines, talking about the 4 lines of the field, you're on my time.
Yeah.
Your drama doesn't come between my white lines.
Right.
And
you,
we knew. So.
you have drama, right?
Yes, I think with girls you're always going to have a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
But in other sports that I've coached, or my girls telling me other sports that they've played, they said that for some reason field hockey is the least
Right.
drama-filled
Sure.
sport that they have. I think that's something that's really important to both of us,
Yeah.
is that they understand to respect each other, to respect us, to respect the sport.
Right.
And they know that we're not going to put up with it, so they would be gone if they're going to ruin what our program stands
Because
for.
it can affect the whole team. You're exactly right.
Exactly.
Now, one thing, we saw a perfect model of that a few months ago. We had some of your girls on our show.
Yes.
They were some of the best guests we've ever had as far as student athletes. And you could tell you had a star player, but the other 2 felt like they were all part of the team. And that's important because you're going to have individual standouts like the one young lady, but the others have to feel like they're part of the team.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of that, when we get interviewed by the Daily Press or by different people and coaches, they all want to talk about Morgan.
Right.
And Morgan is an outstanding athlete, but as a coach, you also have to make the other players feel like, well, you're part of the team too, and she couldn't do it by herself. As a team, we made it to the state tournament together. So that's something that they need to be proud of and continue to work on as a team, because eventually one player is going to leave and the team is still going to be there.
Right. It's all inclusive. And Cassie, you can relate because you've seen star players before at Mississippi where it's
Yeah.
all about me. Well, it's not all about me.
Right.
It's all about we.
Yeah, exactly.
That's important.
Yeah, it is. And it's one of those things where you can see it, and within the next season, that person, or even halfway through the season, that person's gone. And
Right.
then, even as much as Minch felt, like I remember one practice, a bunch of the girls were running cross country, and it was some of her star players or her older players. And I remember her coming up to me and saying, this is what my practice is going to be next year, and look at the girls that have stepped up already.
Right.
And it was kind of very eye-opening for her, and for me walking up and seeing the ones speaking and moving the ball around, and they're not normally the ones that do it. It was very refreshing almost to know that that's what it's going to be like next year.
Very good. I'm going to leave you off the note. By the way, Algebra 1 was my favorite math class of all time. So I do love Algebra 1. What advice would you give a young girl who wants to play field hockey at Menchville?
To play as much as she can. Run, footwork, stick work, go in her backyard, attend camps, just do as much as she can. It's just muscle memory. The more repetition that you can get in, the better you're going to be, and just to never give up.
I think it's a great point because you just can't wait the day before the season starts. I don't care what sport it is.
No.
You have to. It's on your own time, right?
Yeah.
You know, you tell girls to prepare now for the fall, correct?
And we do conditioning all summer. We know the ones that aren't there, that come the day before practice.
Can you tell?
You can tell.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And the girls can tell. Like,
Yeah.
the girls know themselves.
The ones who are literally at the beach an hour ago.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that. All right.
exactly.
Well, very good. Y'all made me laugh, and it was a great show. Thank you for all your patience. I know it wasn't easy during the season, and all your success
Thank
for
you.
making the postseason. That was a great accomplishment, and having great players on JV and varsity both. So we want to thank the two sisters here. That is awesome. Nicole K. Sullivan, and of course Jacqueline Cassie Kirkendall as well, and their wonderful parents too. The field hockey coach at Menchville and the JV field hockey coach at Menchville, proud Monarchs through and through. Stay tuned for our next guest right here on Sports Highlights, our March edition. All right, in February we have the All Hamp University show. In March it's the All Menchville show. And welcome back to Sports Highlights. Greg Bickavaris at Greg Bick on Twitter. Sports Highlights on nnpstv.com. Sports Scene on WPMH on Saturday at 10 a.m. All right, let's welcome Robert Furman, the head wrestling coach at Menchville High School, and Trevon Gray, a sophomore Menchville wrestler. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too.
All right, Coach. We've done a few of your matches over the years. How did you get involved in wrestling, and tell us about your background?
Oh wow. I started wrestling when I was like really little. My dad wrestled when he was in high school, so when I started growing up, he was like, "Hey, how about you try wrestling?" And I was like, "Okay." So it was just kind of like something, I started doing when I was a really little kid in like youth clubs and stuff like that. My dad actually ran our youth club and coached in it, so I learned a lot early on from him, and then I worked up into middle school. We had programs there, and then eventually onto varsity and stuff like that. And it was just something that it's just a part of you. Like once you kind of get that involved in it, you become a wrestler. You're not just a kid who wrestles. Like I think there's a difference between that.
I agree.
Like I would say that he's probably a wrestler because you're kind of coming up the same way I did.
Same way.
How did you get involved in wrestling?
Warriors. I was wrestling since I was like 5 years old. So, yeah, me and my dad. My dad wrestled in Denby, 2-time state champ.
Wow.
Yeah, Deontay Gray. Yeah, and my granddad also, Randy Gray. He wrestled in Lafayette. 3-time state champ.
So it's in your family.
Yeah, it's
for
in my
sure.
blood. Yeah.
Definitely. You have some roots up in the Syracuse area.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. I'm originally from Syracuse, New York. Moved down here like 3 years ago or so. They offered me a job teaching over at Menchville, and so I teach geometry there full time. And then they also offered me at the same time the head wrestling coach position, so took that, and it's been great. And we kind of started rebuilding the program. Like since I've been there, we've just watched the numbers like explode. I mean, the program was not very many kids before. I think pretty much the only person that was returning from the year before was my assistant coach, Chris Roberts, and he's the only person that like had any roots to the year before that was there when I started. So we're kind of starting a new tradition, continuing the old traditions, and yeah.
Evolving from there.
Yeah.
Talk about your weight class. How difficult is it to maintain that weight? Do you eventually want to gain more weight?
Yeah, I mean, it's not hard for me to gain weight because I'm like sitting like 105 flat. so it's not really hard for me to gain weight. I'm not supposed to be like 113, but only that one match.
Right.
When I wrestled Curtis, yeah, I was overweight, so I wrestled up. I mean, that was good for me anyways, because he's an old friend with me. I used to work out with him. He used to be my youth buddy. So
Do you wrestle a lot away from practice? Do you wrestle your dad sometimes?
yeah, I wrestled across the water like for like Saturday practice, the beginning of this year. So yeah, I kind of got taste of everything.
Right. I guess, Robert, we always have fun with this. Nate and I do. Is we're talking to Robert Furman, the head wrestling coach at Menchville, and Trevon Gray, who's a sophomore at Menchville. Wrestling is in their blood. That the Joe public out there, they see a Ric Flair, a Blackjack Mulligan on YouTube. You
Yeah.
know, I'm sure you've seen it too.
Yeah.
You know, Greg Valentine. You know,
Right.
past either the Hulk or whoever. How difficult is it to educate them and say, look, schools like Iowa have traditional powers in wrestling.
Yeah.
The Virginia Duels adds credibility.
Yeah.
High school, college wrestling is totally different from that.
Yeah.
Is that still something you deal
It's
with?
still, yeah, a lot of times, especially like in my classes, when I have kids come in, that's what they think. Like they're like, "Oh, you're the wrestling coach. Like, can you do power bomb? Can you do sharpshooter?" Like they think of all these things that they've seen wrestling on TV, and it's really, I mean, that's the only thing that there is. There's not really like professional wrestling out there. Like they tried to do it for a little while. They did something called Real Pro Wrestling, so they combined a few different styles.
Yeah, they think it's WWE.
Right.
But they, that's the only thing that they're exposed to when they see when they turn on TV. They see wrestling. They're seeing Hulk Hogan. They're seeing
Right.
the Ultimate Warrior. They're seeing things like that where they're missing, the higher level stuff like in the Olympics, like when they see like freestyle and Greco. Like
Sure.
that's real wrestling. If a kid turns that on, they'll see what it's really like. But as I think in the last Olympics, I was trying to find a lot of the wrestling.
It's
You
hard
don't-
to find.
You don't see it televised a lot anymore.
But you do see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
The real style wrestling. But I say one thing that is relevant is even in the match we did against you in Warwick, there were some body slams in there.
Yeah.
So that is what happens in pro wrestling a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you s-
agree. You can go.
Go on.
Yeah, I agree.
Who do you model after? So I mean, do you watch the pro wrestling or you just try to watch the traditional college wrestling?
Now I watch pro wrestling. I say my style is like,
More finesse kind of?
yeah. I try Smith stance and stuff like that, different styles of wrestling. So throwing in legs and
Right.
and
And I'm sure your dad and grandfather gave you
yeah,
advice that you have to look
freestyle
at
and Greco. So yeah,
Right.
that's in my blood too. So
and look at the person's eyes always,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
kind of like which ways he try to anticipate where he's going to go next.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's a big part.
I
of it,
got
isn't it?
thrown last year in state, so I kind of learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, you learn the hard way. That's the unique thing about wrestling.
You have to anticipate a lot, right?
Yeah, and if you don't anticipate a lot, sometimes you get sent for a ride, or whatever happens. If you make a mistake, you pay for it right away.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you learn. That's why I think experience is probably the most important thing. Like growing up in youth programs and having that wrestling in your blood. Just seeing the same situation time and time again, and then you kind of learn how people are going to react. Like if I kind of push you, I know I have an idea as to where you're going to step.
Yeah.
Like so I'm anticipating you, and I'm trying to create something like a pattern that I can anticipate you making, and then I'm going to take advantage of that.
Who are some of the tough teams that y'all wrestled against this year?
We wrestled Great Bridge. We wrestled Lafayette.
Nansemond River.
Nansemond River.
Nansemond River was a
yeah.
powerhouse.
Yeah.
when we
Yeah,
wrestled them.
Braxton, I wrestled him. Who else we wrestled?
It's a lot of
this
good,
season?
man.
Yeah.
Warwick, we did.
Warwick
we
was-
tell
Yeah,
about
I
Warwick's
had
been
30
great
matches
year.
this year, so yeah, I'm
Right.
glad we wrestled them great
The
matches.
TV matches bring a lot of instant credibility to y'all's program, right? People
Yes, sir.
people see it.
Yeah.
Your parents see it. Your grandparents see
Yeah.
it. They like watching it, right?
Yeah.
That's good. So it's an up and coming sport. It's always evolving. It's kind of like geometry, right, Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, just like geometry. Yeah.
So one math question: why is geometry so difficult? I mean, I remember years later a given, but why is it so tough to remember everything else?
I think kind of the stage where kids hit it they're used to seeing algebra, which you can follow step by step by step by step by step, and everything follows the same pattern. Where in geometry, sometimes it can be difficult because you're taking some information and then you're using it to create and solve a problem.
Right.
So it's more of an analytical thinking.
Like
which-
wrestling.
Yeah.
Just your brain. A lot of times, kids' brains just aren't there. It's not that they won't ever be there. It's just that we're trying to push so much on them so early sometimes. So sometimes it can be difficult. Some kids do fine with it. They pass it with flying colors, and some kids find a little tougher time. But then they go back to algebra 2 and they're fine. It's just, I don't know. That type of analytical thinking sometimes is difficult for kids.
Right.
But you see it as an adult. Like if I were to show you it now, you'd be like, oh, this is
Okay,
easy. How did
yeah.
I not get that?
Because you
the first
mature
time?
and you evolve as an adult,
Yeah.
right? In your
Yeah.
process, how do you balance academics and athletics and activities?
Academics, that comes first. So, yeah, I do good. I don't study how I'm supposed to, but like when I do study, I get it, and I'm great with geometry. See, math is my favorite subject, so
Right.
that's strong for me.
Right.
And
So you like math?
yeah, that's my favorite subject.
Very good. Now, as far as wrestling, at one time there was unlimited weight. Whatever happened to the unlimited weight?
I think kids started getting bigger. So like before I started wrestling varsity, the unlimited was gone. It wasn't a thing.
Do you
then, but
remember
it
it though when you were a kid?
It was 250 when I was younger because
Right.
I remember seeing at my high school some pictures of state champions wrestling at 250, and this was back in probably the 80s. By the time they had 250, but by the time I got to high school, it was 275. Now it's 285. They reassess the they go through a whole bunch of stats and figure out what the average weights of kids are, and they figure out what they deem as a safe window to kind of wrestle in there. So if you weigh like 110, you can wrestle 113. That's not too far off. That's a big. So it's not like you're wrestling somebody huge. Like if you were 113, you don't want to wrestle a 160 pounder.
Right.
Yeah. But 285 is the new heavyweight. Right?
Quick question too. I mean, you have to watch your weight, but by the time you wrestle at night, you guys could be hungry. It's a long day. I want to ask you, how do you do it, and how does your team do it? How do you do it?
How do I do? I just go hard in practice, so I can afford to eat like after a big match or something.
Right.
I manage my weight. I don't eat stupid like on a weekend. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just go hard, get a good sweat every practice, and manage my weight.
Right now, but you've got guys that start their day off early in the morning. By the time you're done, I mean, they're spent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sometimes they like. I like them to stay a few pounds under, so that they can have a small lunch. They can have stuff. I mean, they still got to wash their way throughout the day because I mean, if you drink a bottle of water, that's a pound. So that could put you over right there, and that could mean the difference between wrestling and not wrestling that night, between wrestling a weight class up from where you should be, or wrestling your actual weight class. So it's one of those things. Like I always try. Every kid is different, so you try to give them different advice on, okay, eat this, stay away from this.
Yeah.
Like cheese. I'm
But
always
it's a long day
Yeah.
before the wrestling match.
Yeah. So
It
I always
is.
make sure that they bring snacks and stuff for after they weigh in.
Right.
So they always try to make sure that there's like an hour or two window in between when wrestling starts and when weigh-ins happen. So they get time to eat, kind of refresh themselves. I always try to make sure, like I always suggest to them that they bring a candy bar.
Sure.
Because you get that sugar, it makes you feel good. If you have like a little sandwich or something like that that gets you the carbohydrates, you've really got to kind of pay attention to not how much food you're eating, but the content of what it is.
Right.
Like, are you going home and eating a whole bunch of Oreos? Because that's
Right.
that's just
That
fat.
defeats the purpose of wrestling. All right, guys, I want to thank our guests today, Robert Furman and Trevon Gray, both from Menchville High School, the head coach and the sophomore. All the best. We enjoyed televising your match. Continued success to you in your next 2 years at Menchville as well, in coaching, and hope you sustain here at Menchville. We also want to thank Nicole Kirkendall-Sullivan and Jacqueline Cassie Kirkendall from the field hockey team sisters, head field hockey coach and JV coach, respectively. For our great friends at Fazoli's and Ray Price and our great crew, I'm Greg Bicoveris. Thanks for watching our March show, and we'll talk to you soon.